Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X's and T podcast. It's your host, Danny, here. And yes, we're back at it again with another episode. And we're back at it again with more anti-MLM content. We love it. Just a quick disclaimer, as always. We are talking about lines of affiliation. Amway is just a distribution company. They have products that they sell. We have these toxic lines of affiliation that are out here creating cult-like environments that are not okay. But with that being said, we're speaking on personal experiences here. We're not here to slander anybody. If you know who we're talking about, don't go send them hate. All you can do is spread a good message and say, you know what, either you want to join, great. But if you listen to this podcast and you're like, hey, you know what, maybe I don't want that life, good for you. So with that being said, I have my fantastic guest back with us today. She is a fantastic person on social media. She's going to tell you exactly what she does, okay? So we have Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. I was just thinking, this is, we had so much to talk about. We had to do a whole part 2. And how do you wrap up 7 years? Really, no, more than 7 years, because I was in for 7 years. And then it was a good 2 to 3 years of recovery afterwards. And, starting my business, Cactus Girl Media, and all of that, I'm just like, how do you pack 10 years into 2 hours?
It's hard to, and you're so right. I guess one thing that you said that I don't know that I've really considered is the aftermath.
Yeah.
How do you recover from that cult-like environment? Like, you're wrapped up in it for you 7 years inside of this cult-like place. And for some people, it's longer. For some people, it's shorter. But there is still that coping mechanism that you have to develop afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to be okay after MLMs?
Yeah. Well, that is a big one. I kept a journal. I journaled a lot. I was so analytical of my feelings. And because I went from MLM to basically turned around and started Cactus Girl Media, and I was so, I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do because 7 years I had been, working a low level job, which, okay, great. It paid the bills. And then everything, all of my education, everything that I did for myself outside of that was Amway. So it's I feel like 7 years went by where I was not getting educated. I was not part of the proper, workforce. I didn't have a career. I had, my career had stagnated for 7 years, and I felt like, I have a lot of catching up to do. And so I was taking all of the classes that I could. I mean, I got a whole degree in social media marketing at NYU during that time. And I did it in a year and a half. I was like, I've got to get this done. I've got to learn stuff. I've got to learn real fucking skills. And
you gotta expedite it too.
Yeah. And at the beginning, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I mean, I still put pressure on myself, but back then it was insane amounts of pressure to the point where I would be feeling anxiety all the time. And I remember talking to the girl who kind of got me out of Amway, and I was like, I just feel like I'm not working right now. I was sitting at work. I remember sitting at work one day, and it was during COVID, so I had to sit at a table and hand out COVID test kits, and I had to sit there and do that because we had to keep track of how many people we gave them out and who we gave them out to and stuff like that. But it was 4, and so I had to go there every afternoon, 3 times a week, just to sit there and hand hand out these test kits, and there was nothing else to do. It was like in this little room, like the size of a closet. And I was just like, I would always bring my laptop and I would do my homework, or I would, look at, or I would work on my business, or I would do social media stuff like while I was there. I mean, it was great time, but one day I remember just being so tired and I was like, all I want to do while I'm here is watch Netflix. But I'm like, I spent 7 years in a cold. I have so much catching up to do. How can I watch Netflix in the middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday? Like, this is not acceptable. And I texted my friend Michelle, who was the one that got me out of the business. And she said, I really think that's BWW talking right now. If you're tired, you can take an afternoon and watch Netflix.
That is so true. I love that she said that.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to so many people who, again, they still have that same toxic hustle culture mentality where I can't sit still.
Yeah.
I can't. And I love that you also compared, you're like, no, I spent 7 years in a cult. I have to do this, which is great. But I love that somebody was like, no, take a step back. It's okay to relax.
Right.
Because for 7 years, you're told you can't. You can't take a nap.
Yeah.
You have to be rising and grinding every day.
Exactly.
And it's just so funny that we're talking so negatively about it, because where we left off was your honeymoon
I
phase.
know the honeymoon phase. I had a good honeymoon phase. Truly, if I had like a genie in a bottle kind of experience that said, you can go back and relive 3 days of your life or whatever. One of the days that I would choose would be from, either my first or second function, where we just had so much fun. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was just like, honestly, I really thought, like, where has this been all my life? I did speech and debate in high school, and we would go on road trips to other schools for tournaments. And it was like leave school on a Friday, or like leave school Friday morning, come back, and we would come back on like late Saturday night or Sunday morning. And they were just piling us into hotel rooms, and we just had all this time to like walk around and talk to each other and have these deep conversations and stuff. And it was so very much like function. And I really, really cherished that. And so the first one that I went to was in Richmond, Virginia, and it was an 8-hour drive from New York down to Richmond. And we had this like 20, probably not 20, but like 14, 15 seat van. And it was very janky. It looked like, a van that you would steer your kids away from if you saw it in the Target parking lot.
You're on a budget.
Yeah, those vans, man. We had a great time just cutting up, it was honestly, it was the best. And the first function that I went to, it just so happened that I was in the process of buying my apartment, where I live now in New York. And my mom and I bought it together. They were going to approve us, and we had to come here, and like you have to meet with a co-op board and everything. So she was in town for the co-op board meeting, and it just coincided with the function. She left, like her flight out was the morning that I left to go on the function. I had to, after years of saying no to functions, like years, like I would always kind of accidentally on purpose schedule something that I couldn't get out of, like travel or something with my family or whatever on the weekends that functions. Cause I was like, this sounds like a fucking pep rally. I don't want to go. I don't want to have anything to do with this. But at that time, it was kind of like the people that I would have stayed with if, not having a place to live in New York would have been my uplines. But since they were at the function, I couldn't, there was like no way to get out of it. So I had to go. And if I wanted to have a place to sleep, I had to go. And it was,
wow.
Yeah, it was just, but it was a blast. Like I met people on the team that didn't live that lived outside of New York, and, had those relationships, or like started those relationships, and started having deep conversations about your hopes and dreams and what you want. And it was, the motivation was definitely there. And I'd never been in an environment like that before. And it felt really good. And I came back from that. That was in the spring. And I came back from that just like, oh my God, I cannot freaking wait until the summer function, which was always in Syracuse, New York. And if if you ever get it, it is a beautiful drive between here and between New York City and upstate. You go through the Poconos. And so it always felt like, oh, relaxing, like we're going to this, we're going to this thing, but this is like fun. That night, I think on the Saturday night of the function, we were piled, I believe in that hotel, we had 7 people in my room, in the girls' room, and like 8 people in the guys' room. And we all went into the guys' room and we had this massive pillow fight. And it was so much fun. It was really, I mean, I do really cherish those memories.
Does sound really positive and fun. And we were talking about this before we started recording, that also my first function too, so fun. Like my upline was so cool back then. Like we had all of my OG upline there. 2 of my upline had quit. One, I think, married crossline recently. So shout out to you if you're listening. Like that's weird, bro. Just saying. But my upline were all like super, super cool. They're all my age. And it was fantastic. The drive, the everything, it's so nice. Yeah. And what sucks is that it doesn't stay consistent like that. Like you have these really positive and you're like, this is going to be the rest of my life. That's it. This function right here, this is how I'm going to feel every function.
Yeah, no, it wore off. I think I remember functions, my first and second functions so vividly. I remember, everything that happened. And the first one, another really funny thing, I was sleeping in a bed with 2 other girls. It was like, whatever, this is fine. I was used to stuff like that. And I have a lot of cousins. I grew up, I grew up being packed into rooms with a ton of people. It was totally fine. It's fun. It's a slumber party. I grew up in the days when you could still have slumber parties. I don't think kids do slumber parties now.
They really don't. I know my kids don't anyway.
No, we had tons of slumber parties growing up. It was so much fun. So now I'm like, here I am in my late 20s and I'm like, I get to go to a slumber party. This is so fun. Because, function is very like fast paced. There's a lot going on. There's, I always had a really hard time, and you don't get very much time to sleep, but you do need to sleep. And I would always have a really hard time going like all day, all of these thoughts, all of these ideas. I always had a really hard time turning my brain off so that I could get to sleep. So I took a muscle relaxer so that I could fall asleep that night. And apparently it really like messed with my sleep. And I guess I had some weird dreams. I woke up. Actually, no, I did not wake up. But in my sleep, I yelled out, "Tomorrow's Sunday." And I put my hand up really high. I was like, it's been great. This is so good. And tomorrow's Sunday. We're going to have a great time. And every girl in the room woke up except for me. And I was just like blissfully went back to sleep. And that was like the joke for the whole weekend. But those 2 I remember so vividly. The third one, I don't really remember. I don't think I have any memories of it. I really don't.
Yeah. Did you guys have 4 per year? How many did you guys have?
We had 4 each year.
Okay. So like 1 a quarter.
Yeah. Every quarter it was, always something. And there were so many other things between that. They had BBS, a business building seminar, which was like a 4-hour version of the function on a Saturday night. And there were 4 of those per year too. So, I mean, literally, and they would make up shit in between for that too. The beginning time when everything was so idyllic, like you said, it doesn't last. And part of why it was so much fun is because our upline lived in, so here we are, this team, this ragtag group of entrepreneurs, or so we thought, in New York City. Our platinum upline was in Arizona. And so he would come to New York as regularly as he could, but by and large, we were completely just on our own. We didn't know the rules about how you had to wear your hair, that women have to wear dresses. Those things were just not communicated to us. And even if
that sounds so fun.
Right. And even if they had been communicated, like there was really no one who could enforce that, Then Jim, our upline from in Arizona, Jim and Summer was the couple. Like I said, they came out as often as they could. And one thing that always seemed strange whenever Jim would come to visit is that he would stay with my direct sponsor uplines, Daniel and Mark, and whenever I would, the weeks that he was here visiting, whenever I would see Daniel and Mark, they always looked just really tired, like red eyes, kind of pale face, just like, are you sick? Like, what's going on? Are you okay? They would always say, yeah, just Jim, whenever he comes here, he likes to stay up late. He likes to talk. We want to get as much of him as we can. He wants to be on the go. He wants to be showing plans all the time. And, so we're just tired. We are just, running ourselves ragged all over New York City. And I would always be like, well, that's great. So excited. Blah, 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 blah. Like, here's what I've got going on. And, and it was just like, oh, okay. That's cool. And it was alleged to me that what actually was happening is that Jim had possibly had a drinking problem. And I think we talked last time about how alcohol was like not part of the BWW culture at all.
Yes.
And it was told to me by someone that a friend of mine, told me that she was kind of part of this group, and she was, I guess, someone on some of these outings with Jim. And he said that he would just get everyone drunk. Yeah. So potentially, all those times that I saw them looking all, like tired and pale faced and stuff, possibly they were hungover. Who knows?
Wow.
Yeah. So I think things started to get pretty weird with him. And I got to a point where he and I never really got on. And I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? You don't live here. You come here, like 4 times a year. I'm just going to be busy when he's in town. So I removed myself from that situation because I didn't really like the way that he treated people. He had a very brusque kind of, and I was just like, you know what? I realized what would happen is that when he would come to town, he really liked to beat up on people, like emotionally. He told me one time that I was a spoiled brat and that I didn't like.
Seriously?
Yeah, he told me that I was I was born into a family with generational wealth, and my father had a very good career. He's retired. He's not dead. He's retired, which I'm very thankful for. And it allowed me a lot of privileges. And he said that I was a spoiled brat that had never had to work on my own. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've had a job since I was 22, since I graduated from college and was 22 and went to work, and I've been working ever since, except for a few, times I got laid off or, whatever, maybe, we've all been out of work for a few months, but by and large, I was always working and always supporting myself. I always had a job.
Yeah, it's so poetic of him to say that too, because these are Upline and Worldwide, or I'm sorry, BWW or Amway. Where have you ever seen somebody in Worldwide or BWW or Amway lines of affiliation? When are they not talking about what they have?
Right.
When are they not talking about the lifestyle that they have? I mean, sure, they like to pretend that they rised and grinded for it every day, which is bullshit. You would think that they would have a lot more respect for these people who have created generational wealth and been like, oh my gosh, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
You see why this is so important. But this jackass, which by the way, we've changed his name. This is not his real name. Quick disclaimer. Yeah. But he had the audacity to say that to you. And for somebody who is a leader in this organization to say that shit, I'm so angry for you at that.
I know. And the way I saw it was I'm out here trying to create for myself the lifestyle that I had growing up. That's why I'm here. I'm here because I see this as an opportunity to create massive wealth, and let's do that.
Because you look at people like the big crown guy of Worldwide. His kids, what were they? All these people that I'm sure this guy probably looked up to him. Mm-hmm. Or Bill Britt himself, who is the founder of Britt Worldwide, BWW. Yeah. That's why we say his name. But it's what do you think these kids grew up in? And what, are you saying that the founders didn't teach their kids how to have a work ethic?
Exactly.
Just because you grow up with generational wealth doesn't mean that you don't have a good work ethic. Yeah. We're not all, silver spoon fed with, you know what I mean? And
it wasn't even and generational wealth, I think people hear that term, it is a term that is thrown around a lot. And people think Succession, I'm watching Succession right now. My generational wealth was we got to take cool vacations. And
Yeah.
and when we went on vacation, me and my sister were able to have our own hotel room separate from our parents. That was like a big fucking deal. And it made the vacation, so much better. This wasn't like a, Logan Roy private planes.
Right. Your family had what they needed and then some, and they worked hard for it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that took me back. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So if that wasn't enough of a red flag for this guy to get all sketchy, have an alleged drinking problem, and call you a spoiled brat.
Right. Yeah. So Lord knows what was, going on behind the scenes between him and, my direct sponsor uplines, Daniel and Mark. We already think possibly that they were having to keep up with him drinking, and which, if you are ever trying to keep up with someone who drinks heavily, it's and you don't drink heavily, it is not it's not going to end well for you. So
right.
Yeah, so we already know that potentially that was what was going on, and apparently something happened. I don't know. To this day, I was never able to get the story of exactly what it was. And my upline always said, please don't ask me about this, but this is the situation now and this is what's happening. And he said that for years, like, please don't ask me for any more information. Like, I'm asking you as a friend, like, please don't ask me for more information. And I respected that. I tried to, like, here and there to kind of like ask other people if they knew or something, but I never was able to understand what it was. But something happened with Jim that resulted in my direct sponsor upline calling. So we were in New York. There's tons of diamonds in New York, tons of a huge network to be able to plug into. They just weren't our team. And so for years we'd been going to these meetings. We knew these people personally. We knew them, we're on like a first name basis with these people. We have their phone numbers. We've been to their houses for barbecues or whatever. So, but there was always this level of like boundaries or distance or whatever, because they were, as great as they were not they were not part of our line of sponsorship, or we were not part of their line of sponsorship, whatever. So something happened and Daniel had to call one of the diamond uplines that we knew pretty well and had been kind of plugging into for a while. And he'd always said, hey, my door is always open if you guys ever need anything. And when people say that, it's kind of hard to like actually like take them up on it. Like, I know you've told me like 1,000 times. So it was, I understand it was a very hard thing to do. And he sent him a BMP, which was our version of Communicate, at like 2:00 in the morning, and said, Spencer, I really need to ask you some questions if you don't mind. I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but there's something going on that I really don't know if is like kosher or not in, as far as BWW is concerned. So Spencer called him at 2:00 in the morning and they talked about whatever it was. And Spencer said, nope, that is absolutely not okay. Sit tight. Let me make some phone calls. And so at 2:00 in the morning, he then calls his upline, another diamond in BWW. And I guess they talk about it. And Spencer called Daniel back and said, oh, congratulations, you are now on my team.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
could see why you'd be so curious as to what happened, because something bad must have happened.
Something big and especially in knowing Daniel too, he was always so respectful of these people and like understandable about their and understanding of their boundaries, and the fact that like, that we are guests in this environment because we are not on this team. Our businesses are not financially tied to them in any way whatsoever. But yeah, so to be honest, I'm not certain that Jim is even part of BWW anymore. I'm pretty sure that they still build the business as it is, but I don't know if they're part of BWW anymore. And then eventually people re-registered registered under a different name and took their downlines with them to where we were actually on Spencer and Grace's. Grace was Spencer's wife, their team. So that was the whole, that was early 2017, spring of 2017, I want to say. And it was quite interesting. A lot was going, it was a lot. It was, and at first there was kind of a honeymoon phase to that too, because it's like, okay, now we're like, we're really a part of this group. Like now we really can like get to know these people. And they had a big team at that time. And so it was like, oh, there's all these new people, all these new faces. Like, I've always wanted to I've always been curious about you. There were so many people where I would walk up and talk to them and be like, hey, I've always been curious about you. I always thought you were cool. What are you about? Like now I get to know you. And people would say the same thing to me, like, oh my gosh, same. Like, I really, I've always liked your style or the way that you dress or something. And like, I always thought you were really cool.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm so happy. Like, we can be friends and we can talk. So, and that was fun at first, but things changed basically. And so I think this time we are at this point, we are kind of towards the end of 2017. Yeah, one thing that Spencer and Grace really, drank the Kool-Aid on, as you would say, is the way that we were supposed to dress, the way that we were supposed to act, the way that we were supposed to do our hair, the way that we, our makeup, like whatever. Girls had to wear makeup. Girls had to wear dresses or skirts. You had to dress this way. You had to do that. And, I love clothes and fashion and stuff. And so if I get to, go to something and look nice, like I'm going to be happily doing that, so I never had, I never had any problem. I never felt like there was any problem with the way that I dressed, but and sometimes I did wear dresses. I like dresses. Sometimes it's easy to throw on a dress, but I also had a lot of jumpsuits, and I was like, so you're telling me that I can't wear my jumpsuits anymore? Fuck that. I paid good money for these jumpsuits.
Right.
I'm going to keep wearing them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so now we're hearing all this stuff about you need to straighten your hair, which for me, that's fine. If I am going somewhere professionally, and I want to look my best, I do blow dry my hair. I am a white woman. That is normal. However, the majority of the people on Spencer and Grace's team, including themselves, are not white. And that got interesting.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It was a problem.
So in Worldwide, we had something very similar. We had what's called a nuts and bolts meeting. That's literally step by step. I shit you not. For hours, they would teach us all the things that we can and can't do.
Yeah.
They would teach us how to dress.
Yeah.
They would show pictures. They would be like, you dress like this, X, Y, and Z. This is how you match a belt to your shoes and shit. I'm not kidding. And it's like the fact that we were so pressured, because not only are you talking about other cultures of people not allowed to wear their hair naturally, first of all, fuck that.
Secondly, and let me just point out that I believe a few years ago, New York City, if not the entire state, passed a anti-discriminatory law about hairstyles, and that you cannot be discriminated against. You can in a place of work, you cannot say anything about anyone's hairstyle to just promote inclusivity, and that people should be able to wear their hair the way that it grows naturally out of their head. And that should not be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they don't stop to think not just of how people there are as a natural person, but two, they don't think about somebody's budget. You think these people around you who are spending all their money on these products can go afford to go get their hair done?
Yeah. And in the process to put your hair through all that too. Be the professional, to be straightened professionally and blown out and stuff. And then it's if it rains, you're screwed. And it's New York, it rains all the fucking time.
Yeah.
It's okay, well, that's that. $50 down the drain.
Right.
Yeah. Just ridiculous. And there were some girls that really pushed the envelope or pushed the boundaries on the natural hair thing.
Good for them.
But it was always very no one was going around with no one felt like they could, or I don't know if they wanted, maybe they didn't even want to, whatever, go around with an afro or anything like that. There was also a lot of rules against facial hair for men.
Yep.
Yeah, you had to. This guy, he was young, he was so cute. Oh my God, so attractive. He came in and he had locks and they made him cut him off.
Yep, I was just thinking that word for word in my head. Like my upline, Craig, when he had started, he had locks.
Yeah.
And they praised him for wanting to cut them, which is so shitty because what on earth, why do they say that? They say, okay, here's what Worldwide would tell us. They would say, well, statistically speaking, men don't trust men with beards. So you can't have a beard. If your upline doesn't have a beard, you don't have a beard. And what self-made millionaire has locks out there? It's like, I can think of a lot of successful people who have locks.
Yeah.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? And it's just, you think about that and you're like, they praised him. And he would even like talk about it. But that being said, like we had one of my guys, we were just talking about him with his crazy girlfriend, but he was really nice. He had this beard, dude, long beard. And that was his personality. That's who he was. It's so sad that people literally have to give up their entire identities because these people, and it's not like, okay, hear me out. They're not holding us at gunpoint. They're not saying you have to do this. But when you're under that level of manipulation and you don't want to be criticized, like you heavily idolize these people, you're gonna listen. Yeah. And you might not want to, but you do it because you want to fit in.
Yeah. It's that group think stuff. And it's that, and you don't want, if you don't want people to think badly of you either. You don't want to be, no one wants to be like, no one wants to take the last slice of pizza at the pizza party or the first slice. No one wants to stand out. No one wants to be that person that's like, fuck this, especially if you're talking about a group of people that have already in the regular world been systemically treated like shit. So, there's
like making it worse.
Exactly. So there's a lot there. And the other thing that they really pushed was relationships. Oh man, the relationships. Yep. And now I realize now, you know how in The Handmaid's Tale, they could only go to the market. They were allowed to go to the market, but they could only go to the market with another handmaid. And that would, that was like that policing of what they could say to that person. You didn't know. You just had to talk about the weather. You didn't know if you could say like, fuck this shit, or if the person was going to report you. You didn't know how involved they were. And I truly think that that was kind of the sinister reality behind the reason why they pushed so much marriage, and not just marriage, but a very particular heteronormative, toxic, I call it toxic heteronormativity type of marriage, where like this is, the man provides, the man is the one building the business, the woman is creating an environment where he can go and has his important business meetings, showing plans in hotel lobbies and shit. Give me a fucking break.
But you're not. That was such a perfect explanation because as we mentioned in the episode about love and respect, that's the type of bullshit that they are pushing. So you said it perfectly.
Yeah. These couples were, I learned later on that potentially, allegedly, they were setting people up.
I have totally seen that. That's why I said that cross, or that upline that I had, he married a cross line. Why did that happen? Dude, you are weird for that. Just for the record, you guy, you know who you are, my guy. Yeah.
There was this guy on the team that I was in love with. Oh my God. He was so cute, so sweet, so fun. Just, it really makes me sad talking about it now because I say those things and I truly mean them. He was a really good person and he, had just been sucked into this, and I don't know if he ever really found his way out. He was a flirt. He was such a flirt, and I'm sure he liked me, but he was also dating somebody and it was a secret relationship. Oh, no. It was somebody in the group. Yeah. And I speculated so much about this guy, but I just had so many, just like feelings of like, this is the person I am meant to be with. Like, this is the person I am meant to build business with. And we're going to have a beautiful wedding and our uplines are going to be there and blah, blah, blah. Like, I really just like, this was like my little like Amway fucking fairy tale fantasy.
But they plant that in your head.
That's not on you. That's on them. I like chose the songs we were going to play at our wedding and shit. And this guy, and I'm sure, you know, and I consider myself attractive and fun, and I have a great personality too. I'm a cool person to be around, and I'm pretty. So I'm sure he did not mind me hanging on his every word and giving him extra snacks and excesses and, you know, like bottles of water and stuff that I brought with me to conference and shit like that. You know, I'm sure he didn't mind that at all. I'm sure his girlfriend minded it though.
Right. But it was a secret.
Yeah, who was right there. Yeah. And I once I learned to, and then all of a sudden one day I had a theory that he would occasionally talk about his girlfriend, and I had a theory that it was probably someone like outside of the business that like he kind of knew like maybe this isn't the best person for me to be dating if I want to fit in with this group and build this business and go diamond and beyond and see the beaches of the world, and that he was maybe like that was a point of contention. And so that was my theory. That girl was right under our noses the entire time, because one morning I wake up and I'm scrolling on Facebook as you do, and they're announcing their engagement. And a few months later, you start seeing that little bump.
Yes, that happened to us too. My upline, the Syrian guy, if you know who he is, you know, the pompous asshole. Anyway, he has a platinum. People know this story. I didn't know they were dating. I don't know if anybody in their line of affiliation knew that they were dating. They were cross-line. We're not even supposed to ask or know. One day, I swear, it's the same thing. They announced they were engaged. They got married. And then she was pregnant. Like, she was pregnant too. And I was also pregnant. Yeah. The difference is I wasn't allowed to talk about how I got pregnant or my pregnancy story or anything like that. But it happened just like that.
So the funny thing here is that this girl, not only could they not talk about their relationship to, you know, within the group of Amway, but my best friend, when I worked at NYU, went to college with this girl. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And on Facebook, it was very randomly, no one in their friend group they lived in the dorm together. No one in their friend group had any idea that she was with someone or whatever. They all thought she was single, and then all of a sudden she's engaged. So not only are you encouraged to keep those relationships secret from the people in your cult, but also like people in your regular life, you know, like what are you doing for fun? Like, are you just going places by yourselves and like not hanging out with anybody else? Probably, because that's what they fucking want, because of the whole Handmaid's Tale thing. They want you coupled up so that you always feel that, you know, pressure of shit. I really don't like this business. I don't know why I'm here. I don't like these people. I don't want to be here. But you know, my husband is here and I really love him, and he really wants to do this, so I guess I'm going to do this for him. And he's thinking the same thing, but nobody can talk about it. And that's exactly why, because that type of, they are bringing that literal like policing into, maybe not literal police, but that mental policing into your home, into your bedroom, into your family, into everywhere. It is now seeped in every area of your life. And if you have kids, you ain't never getting out of it. You are never getting away
especially if you have the kids while you're in the business. They heavily, and that's one thing that I'm so grateful that babies. I did. I got out. They are.
Is that bad for me to say?
So, no, not at all. Because what's funny is I think that's why they got worried about me getting pregnant from somebody outside of the business that they were trying to encourage me to stay with, by the way. I think you and I had that conversation off topic, which I talked about in my earlier episodes, where my DV relationship and how that really all kind of correlated together. Yeah. And my upline was in the room when I had my baby, right? You think like, okay, I'm having this baby. They're there with me. Everybody's celebrating this. And not 3 months later, literally, maybe a few more, maybe that's an exaggeration, but months later, I'm not in the business anymore. I stopped buying products. I stopped going to these meetings. I started listening to the things that my father was telling me, like, stop going. And it didn't take long for them to not associate. Yeah. Oh, seriously. Yeah. And That's so sad. I think that not only do they anchor them to Amway, but they also spend more money as a couple too.
Oh, yeah.
And it really does benefit them financially. This is all alleged.
Yeah, and then you have, potentially two incomes coming in so that you can, and the whole thing, one thing, the first of your podcasts that I listened to when you and I first got connected, it really took me back because I don't remember who your guest was that time, but it was a lot of talk about the singles and the couples and stuff. And I was in my kitchen doing dishes while I was listening to that. And I really just had to stop and step back and take a break because the anxiety that brought back, hearing everyone was divided into you are a single or a couple. I'm building this business as a single. We built this as a couple. Why does that matter? Why? And these are the things you really have to start asking yourself. And what was really hard for me is that I wanted that. I wanted to be building the business as a couple. I wanted it. And I was dating someone when around the time when I went to my first function, I had just started a relationship with somebody. And he was just a fucking piece of work. He made Amway look like Oz.
Oh yeah. I hear that. We've all got a Kyle, don't we?
Yeah. He was just a ridiculous waste of skin human who was also very emotionally abusive and very narcissistic. And he didn't like the business. He didn't like me doing the business because, he didn't really think that I could be good at anything. So he didn't like that. And just, a lot of reasons. It's not even important.
Yeah.
But he and I were together for almost 2 years, and we broke up shortly before the shift was made from being part of Jim's the alleged alcoholic team to Spencer and Grace's team, and where now we are truly in a cult, and we are being told dresses and hairstyles and stuff like that. And that was when I was still healing from that relationship, and I looked at all of these other beautiful couples, the beautiful Amway couples, and I thought, I want that. I really want that. And I got into a really deep depression because I really felt like, how they when you are showing the plan to somebody, the person doesn't get into business or whatever, it's never, God forbid, it could be something to do with them. It's always your fault. It's always what you could have done better. Everything revolves around you and what you do, which is first of all, how narcissistic that, but secondly, that mentality bled over into my dating life. So to the point where if I messaged a guy on, OkCupid or whatever, and he didn't write back, I would take it personally. I would be like, okay, well, what did I say? What was this? Let's analyze this from 12,000 different ways. Let's make PowerPoint presentations about why this stranger that I don't even know did not respond to was so turned off by my message. God forbid, is it conceivably possible that maybe he did see it and he was like, oh, funny message, and was tired and couldn't reply then, and then got up the next day and went to work and went on with his life and forgot that OkCupid even existed on his phone for 3 months, which is what I do now all the time.
Yeah. And the way that this whole organization makes you view yourself as a person. Yeah. And it's all of those things that come together that really are what we want to talk about. It's all of those things that are so important. And all of those things being said, you were seeing a lot of turnover. Yeah. You guys were changing teams. Jim got sketchy. And all of this, right. And you had a toxic relationship. Then there's this guy who's flirting and it's just a disaster. Yeah. So what was it that, you're like, I'm done? How did that kind of start to look for you?
So I had gone in beginning of 2018, I was so depressed because I really felt like my singleness was something that I had to overcome. I remember listening to BWW tapes or talks where they would talk about that thing you need to overcome. And I was like, oh my God, for me, it's being single. It's my singleness. That's what I have to overcome. And, that's not healthy. So I started going to a therapist, and she was she's amazing. She's really, really great. She does truly amazing work. And, she helped me be okay with being single. I'm single now. I'm 38. I am not looking to change on my own. Most of the time, I don't know. I see these couples and I'm just like, you mean that you have to like check with someone else before you like go away for the weekend? Wow. That sucks.
That's gross.
Yeah, that's gross. Like, you can't just do whatever you want when you want at any time. Not for me.
Yeah. No, good for you though.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at now. Maybe it'll change, who knows, but I think that especially the past 2 years I've been so involved with Cactus Girl Media and getting that off the ground. I really, truly I don't have room in my life for anything else right now. And I'm sure that'll change at some point, but whatever. So, it was my therapist Michelle that really helped me learn to love myself and learn to accept myself as a single woman. And I really fell in love with that part of myself. And I really wanted to, and she helped me see a lot of the misogyny that I was exposed to, that I was involved with on a day-to-day, unknowingly, that on a day-to-day basis. And I feel like this story sums it up the best. The way that women were treated in BWW is, one time we were at a conference and this guy, this major Diamond Upline leader was saying, he was trying to make a point about women in network marketing, which women are leading in network marketing, unfortunately. And that is not a feminist, women are the number one preyed upon people in network marketing. But they of course wanted to look at it as like, women are these trailblazers and blah, 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 blah. So his whole speech was to like recognize and encourage and uplift the women, IBOs in the room. And then he ends this by saying, so stand up for your wives or girlfriends. And it was one of the worst moments of my life, that I looked around and I'm like, I've been doing this on my own for, I was probably like 5 years in by that point. And I didn't have anyone to stand up for me. And it really, really felt like crap. I really felt shitty. And it was just, after that, I wanted to make change in the organization from the inside. And I knew that the only way that I could do that was to go platinum, was to build the business, was to do it. But at the same time, I realized, I also don't really know if I want to be like these people. I don't know if I want to have to change my personality so much that to fit in until, to fake it till I make it. Like, I just, I really don't know if I want to do that. And I had really started around that time, and over the next year after that happened, I really started like pushing the boundaries in terms of like what I could and couldn't do. Like, I would go to meetings wearing so in my office at NYU, it was a residential building that I worked in, and the first 2 floors were offices. So we had, so students lived in the building, and we had a sun deck, and we had a rooftop patio, and I would pretty much every day in the summer, I would make some guacamole, and I would go up to the roof, and I would write in my journal, because I was very much on my like mental health healing journey. And so I would journal, and I would have a glass of wine, and then I would go to, and then if, on every Monday night I would do that, and then I would go to the meeting. So at first I was, at the beginning it was like, oh, I can't drink alcohol if I'm going to like go to this meeting. So, but after that, wives and girlfriends thing happened, I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go to this meeting. I'm just going to hit up the meeting on the way home. I'm going to be 45 minutes late because I wanted to watch the sunset on my gorgeous like rooftop deck. And I was, and then I would go with like, my hair is really curly and it's very like, like bushy, frizzy, and I really, but it looks, it can, I have like a good like wind blown beach babe kind of, and the time my hair was really long, and I would be like, what, I'm just gonna go like this. I'm not gonna do anything with my hair. And I would be wearing like a sundress or something like, like not business appropriate. And I just started showing up like that. I don't care. We had one, and I started treating the conferences, the conventions, as like my little mini vacations. Like I would look at like where we were staying. Like, okay, so we went to Richmond, Virginia twice a year, and I would like, you know what? I wonder what else there is to do around here if I leave the conference. Like what if I don't go to this afternoon? What if I don't go to the afternoon meetings? What if I don't go to the morning meetings? So I started skipping the morning meetings, sleeping in late in the hotel room, taking my time, getting ready, and like, I'll walk there, I'll take an Uber, whatever. And I would go to like the shops and check out different restaurants and stuff like that, and had just, a great time. Richmond, Virginia is a really fun city, and there's a lot of great stuff to do and a lot of great restaurants. So shout out to Richmond and all of the time that I got to spend there just, exploring and living life. So, and then the last function that I went to was our winter function in Ocean City, and we rented these condos by the water, and I brought pot.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And so it was super fun. We had these condos. They had a full kitchen, like multiple bedrooms. So it was really like renting a house with your friends for the weekend. And I was like,
yeah.
And that was the exact mindset that I went there with. I'm like, I am going to rent a house with my friends for the weekend. And that is exactly how I'm going to act. So like me and my downline are out there sitting on the dock smoking and like getting high before, like on the lunch break during the conference. It was fucking fantastic. And then that time I decided that I really didn't want to go to that one. Would always have a dinner included. And these dinners were just like interminable. And I thought, I don't really want to go. I don't want to do it.
We had a winter one like that too.
Yeah.
Dream night is what they called it.
I was like, I don't want to go to this dinner. And they were like, well, we're going to go to the dinner because it's free, or not free, but we already paid for it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm just going to pick something up from like McDonald's or something. Like I'll eat, I know we already paid for it, but I'm just going to eat cheap. And they were like, yeah, we get it. I was like, do y'all want to come? They're like, no, we're going to go. I was like, okay, cool. So now I'm the one renting the car. So I'm the one driving. And I'm like, so I drive to the convention center, drop them off. And then I proceed to go on. I go to Starbucks. I go to Marshall's.
You just had a day.
I had a day. It was fantastic. And then I come in later on. I come back for the like the nighttime meetings or the nighttime like talks and stuff. And I bring in my big bag of Marshall stuff that I bought at Marshall.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like showing off like, oh, see this like see this Sephora quality skincare? Like I just got this for like $8 and it's like $47 at Sephora. And I should be buying Artistry, but have you been to Marshall's? It's real fun.
Have they used Artistry though? I mean, okay, Amway, I'm sorry. I don't like Artistry. I'm sorry. I'll say it. My personal opinion. I mean, if you want to buy Artistry, that's fine. I'm not telling you not to.
I liked Artistry.
Artistry.
I liked Artistry. I didn't have a beef with Artistry, and it will probably always have a special place in my heart because Artistry was what got me interested and passionate about skincare. And
question. So we are coming towards the end of our time here. So I want to know, when you had stopped altogether, you said it was COVID time.
Yes.
So could you tell me kind of what that looked like? Like when everything was during COVID, and then when you were like, all right, I'm done.
So that conference when we were smoking pot on the dock, that was January of 2020, and I was and that was the Marshall's trip and everything. All that happened in January 2020, and I just felt like I don't really know I'm not into this, and I don't know how to tell these people, and I don't know what to do. I really don't want to do this. I want to live my life, but I also want to build wealth, and I don't know another way. So that was really what I was struggling with at that point, is like, what do I do? So, we all know what happened a couple of months later.
Oh, yeah.
And COVID really blew the lid on a lot of MLMs.
Yes.
Because, we had time. We had time to sit back and think about, these organizations keep us so busy and exhausted all the time for a reason, so that you don't have time to think about what it is that you're doing or what you might rather be doing or what other opportunities are out there or whatever. But then COVID happened, and I'm like, my commute to work was 3 hours. Like on a good day, it was 2 hours. On a bad day, it was 3 hours. So I was always was, here or there, like going when the meetings were in person, it was insane. Like just the time that I was spending running from place to place. So yeah, COVID kicked in, and they canceled the in-person meetings, and they moved everything onto Zoom. And I remember sitting in my living room. They wanted us to wear a business suit to sit in our living rooms. And I would, and while whoever was like showing the plan and talking, I wasn't listening to that. I was scrolling through and looking at all of the people and looking at like what their apartments looked like and, what they were doing, what they were wearing. And I just saw all these people, most of them, these sad ass couples sitting in their sad ass looking apartments because they spent all of their money on Amway products and they didn't have furniture or like, pictures on the walls or anything to make it look like a home. And I thought, I have nothing in common with these people and I really don't want to be here. And I need to get out of this. This is done. And but again, I didn't know how, or how am I going to tell these people that I've spent dedicated 7 years of my life to, and these are really good friends and blah, blah, blah. So a couple of months into that, I woke up and there is a woman, her name is Michelle Garabito. She is amazing. She is fantastic. She does, she's a real estate investor now. And she was someone that I connected with early on in, especially during my kind of like mental health journey. And, she and I really connected over wanting to change the misogyny in BWW from the inside. And so she was kind of my rock at that point. And I woke up one morning and I was scrolling through Instagram, as you do in the first 10, 20 minutes that you wake up. And I saw one of her posts and it was talking about how she made a reel talking about how she was involved in an organization and had really bad mentorship. And now that she's out of that organization, she saved like this like astronomical amount of money and she's out of debt and like life is beautiful and whatever. And so I replied to that and I sent her, the like eyeball emojis. Like I sent her like 17 like wide eye emojis. Like what? Like we don't talk bad about our uplines. What are you doing? What are you talking about? So that afternoon, she and I went to the park and she and I were just voice noting back and forth. And she was like, yeah, I got out. I'm not part of BWW anymore. I'm still going to try to build Amway. But I got out and it's amazing and you should too. And she just validated everything that I had felt for years. And this, I'm telling you, 7 years in, this was a 20-minute conversation to get out. And that was that. So I turned, the more I connected with her, she had taken her team out as well. The very next thing I did was call my downlines and got them out. And I was like, yeah, how do you really feel about this? Let's have a conversation. They were like, yeah. No, I've hated this for years. Like, this is miserable. I don't want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what else we can do. So, yeah. And then it was shortly after that I started Cactus Girl Media. I thought about like continuing to build, Amway or do some kind of network marketing, but I was also doing a lot of my social media stuff and photography on the side. And that was really starting to take off, that I was like, wow, like I have, like actual clients that are coming to me asking me to do work for them. Like, I don't really have time for this other thing, so let's just lean into this and see where it goes. And here we are today, 3 years later.
Wow. I'm so happy that you have been so willing to share this story. So,
there's nothing I won't talk about. I don't care. I have zero boundaries, like whatever.
It's okay. I mean, we're here for it. But so what is it now that you do? And like I said at the beginning, I don't know that I have the best explanation for what you do. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us about what you've got going on currently that you've been telling me about.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of tell you the my journey was that I had just gotten gotten out of this cult, and I was like, I really need to, really need to do something else. I never for a second gave up on the dream of entrepreneurship or, building wealth and, doing something impactful. I never for a second was that not an option.
Yeah.
So I have a degree in communications, and I never really did anything with it. I was very confused in my early 20s, career wise, with what I wanted to do. I worked in politics for a while, right after college, and I really that kind of left in a bad taste in my mouth. So then I was just really I have no idea what I wanted to do. And then I got that job at NYU that was a very soft landing place for all of this shit that was going on in my life for those 6 years that I worked there. And so I decided to kind of go back to my roots, and I started sharing my Amway story on social media as a way to heal. And you're sharing stuff on social media, you need pictures, you need videos. And my coworker and I had been doing these who can go the longest without repeating an outfit. And at the time I was really into buying clothes off Poshmark and like vintage clothing and stuff like that. And so I would, put together the outfit, and it started out I would just have to I would have her take my picture, someone random or whatever. And so we would just post it in our stories just for fun, the outfit of the day. And then that eventually, I was like, you know what? Why don't I have more fun with this? Why don't I buy a tripod for my phone? And it was literally a $20 Amazon tripod that changed my life, because then I was able to do those pictures, do those videos, do it on my own. I started scouting out locations where I could go across the city, and I really just started sharing that journey. And that was what in the early days was what attracted clients to me. And when I decided to really start going at it and created a couple of offers and started talking about them regularly, I made $1,000 in the first month that I started doing that. And
wow.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, photography is great, but I kind of want, to be able to be free. I want to be able to travel. And if I want to go visit my parents for a month or whatever. So, maybe let's look into copywriting. And I've always been a writer. I did my high school newspaper. I did my college newspaper. I always was writing. I wrote novels. At my parents' house, there's binders full of novels that I wrote when I was in from fourth grade all the way up until college, honestly. So I really tapped back into who I was, and I created copywriting offers, and I just started marketing the shit out of that on the internet. And eventually I was able to I got a copywriting contract, and I was able to leave my job at NYU to become a full-time copywriter. And that contract dried up after a while, and then I was kind of tired, because writing for somebody else, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. I was and I was wanting to shift to more teaching. So, and I love working with entrepreneurs. The way that my mind works, I'm you give me an idea, and I'm I'm going to monetize. I'm going to figure out a way for us to monetize that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You grow with people, and those types of friendships or even just business partnerships, whatever, connections. Those are some of the best ones to have. So I'm totally right there with you.
Yeah. So I help mission-driven entrepreneurs, mission-driven service providers who, the type of person who wants to start a business because they see a gap that needs to be filled and they're really passionate about it, but they don't know anything about marketing and sales. So I teach them how to write and talk about their offers and what they're selling in a way that their dream clients say, oh my God, I need this. This is exactly what I need. So it's called Learn the Language That Sells is the name of the program. And I'm actually just released it like this week and it took a while to get everything together. But now it's out. You can find me on cactusgirlmedia.com and you can find all the information about Learn the Language That Sells there.
Yay, which is so exciting. Oh, and real fast, just a quick exciting thing. You're speaking at a convention.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Aren't you?
Yes. So I am, a lot of my clients are in personal finance somehow. And a lot of them are like, I've worked with financial advisors, money coaches, whatever. And I found out about this conference last year and it's called FinCon. And it is a conference for personal finance digital creators. And so all of a sudden, like I didn't know about this, but all of a sudden I was sitting at my desk and my phone is starting to blow up with like all of these people that I follow posted like getting on the flight, going to FinCon. And I was like, what is FinCon? And I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I need to be there. And I was like, literally like, do I just like get on a plane right now? Like I really need to be there. So, I didn't go then because that's crazy to just go get on a plane somewhere last minute. But I was like, all right, whatever. In 2023, I'm going. And I actually applied to speak there. They'd sent out an email a couple of months ago saying that they were looking for a speaker lineup for the 2023 session. And I was like, you know what? I got some shit to say. And I've been working with entrepreneurs and successfully helping them grow their businesses and sell their offers. And I do understand like people in this particular niche. So I'm going to go. I'm going to apply to speak there. And I got selected. And so here we are. And public speaking has always been in my heart. That's another thing that I think that BWW gave me. I knew that I wanted to be on stage. I knew that I wanted to be talking to people and sharing stories. And this is the first time I get to do that. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Meredith. I can't tell you how much, again, that I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you want to share with everybody what happened with BWW and Amway and show us that we can not just leave this, we can get healthy after this, and we can actually create our own journey after this and actually be successful and have still some of those principles that attracted us to these organizations, but apply them in a way that's not toxic and cult-like.
Right. And so if I can, I just want to end by saying that the skills, whatever you want to call them, experiences that you had in part of these organizations are it's not wasted time. You did learn valuable skills that with just, a few tweaks here and there, you can easily take to another industry. Just don't put network marketing or MLM on your resume. Don't do that. You're better off having a gap than you are. Say you had a baby and you took some time off.
Awesome. Okay. So cactusgirlmedia.com on Instagram at
cactusgirlmedia.
Yay. And you guys can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at @XsandT_podcast. Check out the YouTube channel. It's slowly building, but it's there. We're uploading all the episodes there on the off chance that you don't want to listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And that is going to be linked in the show notes. Everything here that we've talked about will also be linked in the show notes. We're going to post it on Instagram and it's going to be exciting. So thank you again, Meredith. And I hope we're going to catch you in the next episode.
Yes.